Okay, now what I'm doing obviously at the moment is lining it up in a three-dimensional sense. Okay. But as you can see, I've got the colours wrong. Now the reason is that I've got a light blue cube in four-dimensional space that's intersecting with our three-dimensional space. So this is where it gets hard, because I've got to rotate that in four-dimensional space so that the blue cube intersects our 3D space. And what I'm going to do, I can't guarantee this is going to work. Okay, I'm now going to do a 4D rotation to try and bring that blue cube forward. So let's just hope it works. So I'm now rotating. I think that might have done it. Let's just check. Yeah, that did it. Okay, now it actually is quite hard to get to the point where you know to do that, because at first you're rotating 4D space, you're completely clueless what's going on. But you can actually learn to do this. And okay, the last bit is the hardest, where you actually try and line it up properly. So let's just say I can cheat by looking at those numbers down at the bottom. I just want to get them below 16, so I'll just try. Frustration. I wonder if I should just give up at this point. How long have I got? It's
5 minutes.
5 minutes left. I'll give up at this point. You can see the idea. Okay, so this is obviously, I mean, you can see where the culture, it's just a sort of proof of concept. But I have got one that uses a 4D tetrahedron as well, so it's the algorithms actually do work on convex objects. Right, now the main thing you do is you need stereoscopic projection, really, because you're losing too much information by compressing down to 2 dimensions. You really do need a good stereo presentation. Is it too difficult? Well, from personal experience, I know that it is possible to learn, and there's a little bit of literature in the field about people doing 4D environments, and people can learn. And it's hard, but people can learn, is the general message. But I think that's actually quite cool. From the point of view of games, making it easy is a real challenge. It's not easy. Okay. Why could this be applied in any real sense? Possibly. These are my ideas. I think, first of all, there's a whole thing about, warp drive and higher dimensions and Star Trek and all this other stuff. Well, you could actually have real 4 dimensions. In 4-dimensional geometry, you can do this thing of cutting through wormholes and getting quickly from one place to another. But you could actually back that up with real 4D physics, if you like, so that it's not a cheat where you're not just sort of pressing the button and the magic happens, and etc. You really have to learn to get to grips with 4D space, and you do the magic that way. And the other one, I think, that is probably maybe more exciting is the whole idea of ghosts and demons and other dimensional beings. You could actually, they would actually inhabit other dimensions, and you would have to interact with those other dimensions in a real way. I think it might be a bit like Flight Simulator, where if you had a flight simulator which didn't have real physics, it would just be a fraud in a sense. And I personally think that all of the games at the moment where you have these other dimensions and magic buttons, I think are a little bit fraudulent, and it would be nice to actually have a real physics behind it. I think the whole idea of higher dimensions is actually very much in the popular imagination. If you Google it, you come across a whole mass of ideas of people thinking about other dimensions, what goes on in other dimensions. There are black projects in America where they're actually designing spaceships to fly through hyperspace, etc., etc. So there's all this sort of stuff that's in the background, but there's no real geometry in the games that taps into this. And I think it would actually be very, not maybe in the immediate future, but a decade, it would work out well. Okay, what do we need? 3D displays, we need 3D displays. Getting around that. We need controllers with 6 degrees of freedom. The ergonomics of the little demonstration I gave is very bad, so you have to get some 6 degree of freedom way of doing it. And I've thought about it and haven't had time to talk about it. You need software to calculate intersections and projections. Okay, with projections is easy, it's just extending what's already there. What I've really been looking at is intersections, and that's much harder, and it's very slow. I mean, there's a whole pile of stuff you can do to optimize and make that good, but what I've done is just a little first demonstration. Higher space narratives, that's to make it appealing. Well, as I've demonstrated, I think that's already there. It's already waiting to be tapped into, the whole business of the dimension. And you need nerds to create and play the games. That's what I've been doing. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Any questions?
Have you tried one of the things I saw actually about a month ago? It was on a Slashdot article. There was a website that showed visualizing 4D objects, but in 2D, but by rendering the edges as curves rather than straight lines, and it was much easier to visualize.
This is really, really crude. They're coming out and they're becoming more popular.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll probably find that by the time I can write this thing up, I'll be sort of well behind the times. But yeah, there are demonstrations like that coming out. And I think its time has come. I think it's going to become more popular. When we get cheap 3D screens, I think it'll sort of explode. Actually.
How do you currently control it? Are you just rotating backwards and forwards in each dimension, like on the keyboard?
This is done on the keyboard.
Yeah,
and
between controls for each dimension to rotate, like X, Y, Z.
Yeah, I've got basically 4 keys: X, Y, Z, W, and I pick 2 at a time.
Okay.
So I want to rotate in the X, Y, and I use that.
And that. So it's actually quite difficult to learn how to do it. But it would be much better, obviously, if you had a sort of analog thing where you've got 6 degrees of freedom here. You can just, and then you could fly forward. That's the real game, where you're flying in 4D space, and this rotates the craft as you fly forward. That would be this is really very crude. Any other questions?